Jarrell Pryor went on a date and never came home. His family thought he was working late. His little daughter thought her daddy would be back. But while Jarrell believed he was meeting a woman from Instagram, investigators say that woman was helping her boyfriend set him up. And when the gunfire started, Jarrell wasn't the only person in that car. His real name was Jarrell Lamont Pryor, and he was 26 years old. Jarrell was a father, a son, a brother, a grandson, and someone his family remembered for being funny, playful, confident, and sometimes just plain irritating in that little brother kind of way. But the role that mattered most to him was being a dad. His daughter, Honey, was still very young. Jarrell filled his social media with pictures of her, and his family remembered how much he loved playing with her. They had their own little game. Honey would look for her daddy, and Jarrell would hide around the corner before popping out and scooping her up. After he died, that memory became painful because Honey kept looking for him, and there was nobody left to pop around the corner. On the night of January 24th, 2025, Jarrell was working in Indianapolis. Afterward, he stopped by family, saw Honey, and then went back out. He had been talking to 19-year-old Alexis Hawkins on Instagram, and Jarrell believed they were going on a date. According to investigators, the two arranged to meet that night. They eventually stopped at McDonald's and later at a liquor store near 49th Street and Primrose Avenue. Surveillance footage would later capture Jarrell and Alexis together in his vehicle. At that point, Jarrell was still alive, still thinking this was simply a late-night meetup. But investigators say Alexis was having another conversation at the same time. Her boyfriend was 18-year-old Brian Winston Jr. According to court documents, Alexis was communicating with Brian while arranging her meeting with Jarrell. Investigators say those messages showed that Jarrell was being targeted for a robbery. And this is where the story changes. Jarrell thought he was meeting somebody who was interested in him. Police say Alexis was helping position him for a robbery. Make it make sense. Investigators say messages showed Alexis talking about finding people to rob and making a play. Jarrell knew none of this. He was sitting in his own vehicle with someone he believed he was getting to know. Somewhere outside that car, investigators say Brian Winston was involved in the plan. The date had started like something ordinary. But before the night was over, Jarrell would be fighting for his life. Just after 1 a.m., police received a report of gunfire near East 49th Street. Officers arrived and found Jarrell shot beside the vehicle. The young father who had left home expecting to return later was now critically wounded. And Alexis Hawkins, the woman he had gone to meet, was still alive. That detail would become one of the questions investigators had to answer. What exactly happened in those final moments? Jarrell was rushed to the hospital, but his injuries were too severe. He died shortly after arriving. His family was still waiting for him to come home. They didn't yet know the night had already changed their lives forever.
Jarrell Pryor's parents tell me they don't know why their son would have been out here at the corner of 49th and Primrose early Saturday morning. That's 2-year-old Honey crawling all over her grandpa Travis Wiley. And this is the last picture Jarrell Pryor and Honey ever took together before Pryor was found fatally wounded in a neighborhood north of the Indiana State Fairgrounds at 1:30 Saturday morning.
Why is he over there?
That one's a mystery. I have no idea. That's one of those, I don't know if he picked somebody up, take him home. We just know that part we don't know. Whoever this person is, you live in that area.
When neighbors reported they heard multiple gunshots and police found shell casings in Pryor's car.
The details they gave us was basically there was somebody else in the car with him, right? And we can only assume that an argument ensued, and then they took that drastic action to take his life, and he tried to get out of the car, and that's where they found him.
He was real funny about who he let in his car. So he's very particular about who can ride in his car.
Today, an IMPD officer was hanging out in the neighborhood in case anyone wanted to talk about the killing, as evidence of the futile struggle to save Pryor's life remained on the street. Pryor graduated from Lawrence Central, was working steady, taking care of his daughter, and did not have a criminal record.
Whoever done this, they took my heart. It was my baby.
There are Ring doorbell cameras on some of the houses out here at 49th and Primrose, and maybe detectives can cobble together a case based on the video evidence they find out here and whatever they discover in Jarrell's cell phone to solve this murder. With Indy Unsolved, I'm Russ McQuaid.
Jarrell Pryor was dead, but his family didn't immediately know why. His mother knew something was wrong because Jarrell wasn't answering his phone. Calls went unanswered. Messages weren't getting through. Then the family received the news no parent wants to hear. Jarrell was gone. His family had expected him to come home. Instead, they were trying to understand how a 26-year-old father had ended up shot after going out to meet someone. Investigators then started looking closely at the woman who had been with him. Alexis Hawkins had survived the shooting. That alone didn't make her guilty. At first, she could have been another person caught in a violent attack. But detectives had Jarrell's phone, and that phone contained the beginning of the answer. Investigators found the Instagram messages between Jarrell and Alexis. Their conversation showed them arranging the meeting. Then detectives started looking at what Alexis had been saying to other people. According to court documents, she had been communicating with Brian Winston Jr. around the same time she was talking to Jarrell. 2 conversations, 2 very different stories. Jarrell's messages were about meeting Alexis. The other messages, investigators say, were about a robbery. And that changed everything. Detectives also found evidence suggesting Alexis had been searching online for information about shootings shortly after Jarrell was killed. Investigators believed those searches showed she was checking whether the shooting had made the news. Then came another detail. After the shooting, Alexis allegedly contacted people asking for a ride away from the area. So now detectives weren't just looking at what happened inside Jarrell's vehicle. They were looking at what Alexis did before the shooting, during it, and immediately afterward. Oh, so now the timeline was starting to come together. On February 6th, investigators questioned Alexis. She acknowledged being with Jarrell and being inside his vehicle, but denied taking part in the shooting. According to the probable cause affidavit, she also tried to distance herself from the weapon and the physical act of shooting. When detectives brought up messages connected to the alleged robbery plan, Alexis stopped the interview and asked for an attorney. At that point, investigators had more than a surviving witness. They had a digital trail, messages, surveillance, and a woman who had been sitting beside Jarrell when he was attacked. On February 26th, Alexis Hawkins was arrested and charged in connection with Jarrell's death and the alleged robbery. But police still needed Brian Winston. Jr. Brian was Alexis's boyfriend, and investigators believed he played a direct role in the attack. He wasn't in Indianapolis anymore. He had made it to Austin, Texas. On April 2nd, authorities arrested Brian there, and he was later extradited to Indiana. For Jarrell's family, 2 suspects were now behind bars. But an arrest doesn't explain everything. It doesn't bring a father back to his daughter. And it doesn't erase the question that had stayed with the family since that morning. Why Jarrell? Why did a simple date turn into a robbery investigation and a murder case? And the investigation wasn't finished. Because as detectives kept digging, the story would grow much bigger than Alexis Hawkins and Brian Winston Jr. At first, the case appeared to center on Alexis Hawkins and Brian Winston Jr. But investigators kept working, and months after Jarrell Pryor was killed, another suspect was arrested. His name was Malachi Wells. Wells was arrested in Indianapolis in November 2025 and charged in connection with Jarrell's death. According to later reporting, investigators believed Wells had a role in the group involved in the robbery. That meant the case had grown beyond the young couple investigators first focused on. Then came another major development. Stephen Rogers was identified as a 4th suspect. According to later court documents and reporting, Rogers had initially been questioned by police and released. Investigators continued gathering evidence, and Rogers was eventually arrested in 2026. He faces murder and robbery-related charges. The allegations made the case even more complicated. Investigators say Wells told them he had been the driver that night and that he provided a firearm to Rogers. Wells also reportedly gave investigators an account involving Rogers and Brian in the shooting. Those are allegations contained in the investigation and court records. They still have to be tested in court. That's important because none of these defendants should be described as convicted killers. They have been accused and charged. The courts will decide what each person actually did. After the arrests, the legal case against the suspects continued moving through the Marion County court system, with proceedings extending into 2026. And while the court process moves forward, Jarrell's family is still living with the loss. They remember the jokes, the dancing, the the confidence, and the way he could annoy his siblings and still have everybody laughing. Most of all, they remember how much he loved Honey. She was only a toddler when her father died. She didn't understand why he stopped coming home. She only knew that the person who used to answer when she called for Daddy was suddenly gone. That is the part of Jarrell's story no arrest can change. 4 people may eventually stand before judges or juries. Evidence will be examined, witnesses will testify, and arguments will be made. But whatever happens in court, Jarrell's family will still have to live with what happened. Because the night Jarrell went to meet a woman from Instagram, he thought he was taking a chance on a new connection. He never got the chance to come home and tell his daughter about it. Instead, his family was left with questions, court dates, and a little girl who will have to grow up learning about her father through the people who loved him. And that is Jarrell Lamont Pryor's story. If you've been following Jarrell's story and you want more true crime cases told with the details that often get overlooked, make sure you subscribe to Fable of Crime. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story.